I'm going to preface this mission number 7 for the Vergeev Group. It's been a while since I've flown it. I've been able to patch the whole campaign and post it on the forums, and it looks like some people have been able to enjoy it that weren't before because of the updates to DCS World. So I'm happy about that. But again, it's been a while since I've flown this mission in particular, and you'll just have to bear with me as I go through the startup, and we can hear what the commanders have to say about this mission. So I'm going to get going, and I'll check back in when I'm in the air. Remember how to start.
Речевой информатор исправен.
Next job is not our core business, but is necessary. Weather conditions are complicated. Keep sharp to flight plan. Flight level at your disposal, but allow for visibility on the water. Don't climb above 300. Solid cloud mass. Nothing to see from there. Flight level must be fixed by autopilot. Otherwise one can get a bus. Recommended speed mode 180. Look around as often as you can. It's possible that Georgian aviation is operating in search zone. They don't endorse their actions with us. The vessel must be found. Otherwise, without speed, it will turn against the wind, capsize on the wave and sink. The plan is open. Act immediately.
Naval 233, acknowledged. We will find it. This washtub has nowhere to go.
In this weather, anywhere. Repeating, everything to be done with triple attention and caution. Report right away on everything you see.
Naval 233, confirming triple attention, caution and report.
233, Naval. That's right. I was asked to convey thanks from border guards. They say you did a good course.
233, gratitude accepted. Naval, pass them that next time they won't get off so cheap. Thank you over the radio will not be enough.
Naval copies you, 223. Now put your jokes aside. Find this damn vessel. By the way, guys in uniform took serious interest for bullshit. They crowded at headquarters. Make them happy.
Yes, sir. No more jokes.
Proceed, 223. Over.
Naval 233, roger that. On my way now.
Okay, so I'm just about ready to go here, and we've been tasked today with finding this naval vessel, and it's not part of our core work apparently, but be that as it may, we've been tasked with it, and the weather's really nasty. I guess I'm supposed to do about 180 knots and look for this vessel. So wait for my HUD to appear here, and we'll get going. All right. So remember this. This really trains you on how to use the autopilot system. Not so much the dampening and how to fly the aircraft with the various autopilot channels, but the traditional idea of autopilot. So it's really windy. I'm gonna have to trim out the rudder. And we'll go to about 100 feet. I probably should go higher, because the first few times you fly this, you it's very easy to get disoriented and you end up in the water. So let's go to 150. So I've trimmed out the rudder, and now I'm going to hit the trim button. Now I'm going to engage route mode. There we go. And now the helicopter is pretty much flying itself within those 20% ranges above or below for the collective and the steer and the rudder and the pitch and roll. So try to stay around 150, and since we just got over the water, it now says 170, so I'm going to come off that a little bit. And it looks like we're doing about 210 knots, so I'm going to come off of that a little bit. And now, while the en route mode is engaged, you can still control the aircraft. It's just you're fighting it because it's wanting to go where it needs to go. So if you hold the trimmer button in and then pretty much configure the flight control surfaces where you want them, or the speed that you want. So I'm going to pull up so that I can get closer to 180. And I've still got the trimmer button held in. And I'm going to let it settle. And then I'll release the trimmer button, and then autopilot takes control again, and it should try to maintain that speed. Looks like I need a little more collective to give it a little more range to get back up to 150 meters. So, like I was saying, this really helps you out to understand the autopilot as it's traditionally known as flying a sequence of waypoints. To be honest, this mission isn't exactly the most riveting, exciting mission. Oh, there's something right there as I say that. So I'm going to disengage the autopilot and go check this ship out.
This is Vergeev's 233 on the saturate.
233, Albatross. Good luck. It's wet today. We'll be soon back to the zone.
Albatross 233, good luck to you too. Catch up. Over.
Okay, so I'm going to re-engage the autopilot en route mode. And so that was a friendly, obviously. Now, there's two ways that you can do the en route mode. So now, before I talk about that, I'm going to go ahead and hold down the trimmer and speed up to 180 and try to get it to settle around there. It's not going to hurt to go 190. Let go of the trimmer. And she settles out. So these two switches here, okay, this first switch is whether or not the altitude autopilot channel is using the barometric altimeter or the radar altimeter. And when I'm over, actually more often than not, I always use the barometric. And I'll get into the reasons for that later, but this is the one, this other switch is what we're interested in. DH, direct heading, or DT, direct track. So right now it's on direct heading. So it's going to fly us directly to the next waypoint, which is our steer point. So as you can see, we're dead nuts heading towards it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and turn off the autopilot en route mode, and I'm gonna fly over to get off this course a bit. So now when I release the trimmer, it's just gonna maintain the heading when I release the trimmer. So now you can see we're moving off course. Because you can see our planned course is this green line here, this dark green line. The black is actually a history of our flight, our actual flight, and then the light green is pointing to our next steer point, our next waypoint. So now watch me re-engage the en route mode, and you'll see what happens when this switch is set to DH. We're going a little fast, but that's all right. So I've engaged it. Now it's turning, and it's going to make a direct course for our steer point. You notice that we're off of the planned route, which is this dark green line. So let's settle up here. So if you want to get somewhere fast, obviously the shortest way to go is a straight line, and that's what DH is going to do for you. But if it's very important that you stay on your flight path like it is in this mission, because we're searching for something and we've planned where we want to search, let's try the direct track mode. So I'm going to go ahead and hit this switch. That's the neutral position, so it's just going to maintain the heading. I clicked it again. Now we're in direct track mode, and we're turning. So let me make sure we're not missing anything here. It's just turning 5 degrees or so, but we're going to end up on this course, and then it's going to hone in on the steer point. And when we're on the course, you could switch this switch back and forth. It's not going to make a difference because it's both the directest route to the steer point, and we'd be on the actual planned flight route. Sometimes, like if we were pointing 90 degrees to the right, traveling that way, you'd really see a difference between these two modes, because you're going to wonder what's going on, because it'll actually turn 180 degrees from where, if we were going this way, it would point all the way back this way, not towards the steer point at all, but towards this flight path. And then once it reached it, it would turn back towards the steer point. So you have to be careful with that. I hope I haven't confused anyone. Hope that was helpful. Just sometimes you should just start up a mission with just your aircraft in the mission editor and just test these things and see what happens when you switch them. And that can be really helpful because you're not worried about all this other stuff that's going on, and it helps you figure it out. So I'm going to turn back to direct heading mode, because in the Vergeev Group campaign, it's very important that you hit the steer points. And if you had this on direct track mode, it'll actually do a lead turn towards the next waypoint. And then you'll end up on the right flight path. But sometimes it misses. It doesn't get close enough to your current waypoint, and you miss it. And of course, in this campaign, that means that you're going to fail the mission. So I usually use direct track mode until I get on the flight path, and then I switch it to direct heading mode. And then when I pass that waypoint, it's still going to turn towards the next waypoint. It's just you're going to be off the path a little bit. So once it's headed in generally the direction of the next waypoint, I'll put it back into direct track mode until I'm on the flight path. Then I'll put it back to direct heading mode. You'll see. The other kind of gotcha with this is that for some reason that I can't fathom as to why, the en route mode only works through 6 steer points, waypoints. So if there's more than 6, on the 6th one, it's just going to maintain that heading, and it's not going to turn towards the 7th. It's kind of a frustrating limitation, but it is what it is. So we're coming up on this next one. We're in direct heading mode. So let's see what happens here. So in direct heading mode, you're guaranteed to go directly over your steer point, which is good for when you're flying the Vergeev campaign.
Naval 233, just arrived at search zone, starting the sweep. It's really wet outside.
Naval copies that. 233 entered search zone. Good luck, 233. We'll try you out when you are back. Over.
So my hands are off the throttle and stick at this point. They have been for a while. So this is all being done by the autopilot system. And you'll notice that we've flown into the wind, and look at our speed, because our aircraft was configured, the flight surfaces were configured such that we were doing around 180, 190 knots. Now we're doing 150 because of this wind. And we're slightly off the flight path, and we're making a direct course towards the next waypoint. So I'm going to flip it to direct track mode, and you can see it's turning left. This one's a lot more abrupt than the last time we tried this. You know, when you're trying to learn this, you're like, what is it doing? It's not even pointing towards the next waypoint, but it sort of overdoes it and then compensates and comes back. Actually, it doesn't overdo it. It puts you perfectly on there when it's done. It sorted itself out. So we're on the path now, and I'm gonna put it back to direct track mode. I'm also gonna hold down the trim button and pitch down to get back up to 180. Of course, the opposite's true as well. When we turn back 180 degrees, look at that. I wasn't even paying attention, but do you see how much we were turned off course there? It's because it's so windy out, and with the limits to the visibility, it's really essential that you use all the autopilot channels when you're out here like this, because it's very easy to think that you're at one altitude and you could be 10 meters off the surface of the ocean. You wouldn't even know it. So I'm going to need to give it a little more collective to fight this wind to get back up to 150. So it also takes into account the wind, the autopilot does, because you can see we're not pointed directly at our steer point, yet we're staying on the planned course and moving in the right direction. So it's pretty sophisticated, and it works really well. Better keep my eye out here for this ship we're looking for. So I'm not sure if I finished what I was saying about, so if we turn 180 degrees, you know, we're going to be doing about 250 knots because we've changed the configuration of the flight control surfaces for going against the wind. So you have to be careful after each major change in direction to check your altitude, you might have to adjust your collective and your speed as well. Okay, I'm back. I had to cut this video in half because it filled up my capture drive. So I'm trying to get back on course here. So I've got it on direct track mode, and we're coming up on the last waypoint. Little high. I'll come off the collective. And we're on the lookout for this lost vessel. There it is. I see it right there. I'm going to turn off autopilot, turn off the altitude because you have to get really close to these things. You have to be really careful because it's really easy to get disoriented in the low visibility.
Naval 233, observing civil vessel, on the go. Speed no more than 4 knots, heading 130. How do you copy, Naval?
233, Naval, say again. Repeat 233. What kind of vessel is it?
Damned if I know. Seems to be under Ukrainian flag. Dry cargo type. Moving on its own. How do you read, Naval?
Naval, roger that. 233, approach the ship and read the name.
Shit. Maybe I should dive and clean their kill? Sorry, Naval. 233, coming up closer.
It's probably safest when you're just starting as a new pilot or just kind of starting this campaign to go ahead and just hover and then use the descent mode to descend, because it's really easy to get too quick, too low. But you have to come out of en route mode to engage the hover. So let's get back over this thing. And I'll show you how to do that.
Naval 233, this old dub is Donbass, not Khrushchev. Dry cargo ship Donbass. How do you read that, Naval?
233, Naval reading you loud and clear. Dry cargo ship Donbass under Ukrainian flag. Continue with plan run.
Confirming plan 1.
Okay, so we're in a hover, and I'm going to hit the auto descent, and we should come down 2-3 meters per second, which we are. But if you have too much juice on the collective, and you can do this all the way down to 4 meters, but it will stop at 4 meters. But wherever you stop it, it'll stop.
Выпусти шасси.
So I stopped it at 11 or 12 or lower. But if you have too much juice on the throttle, so it doesn't have that 20% to go down below to descend, come off the throttle a little bit, but make sure that that needle does not go lower than 2 or 3 ticks. And, the other place that you can look is right here. And when you're not in auto hover mode, this right here, those 2 zeros are the same as this. So this will tell you if you're going up or down. It'll have a positive or a negative. See? All right, so we've accomplished this mission, and so we'll go ahead and resume for waypoint 6. I'm I'm going to go to about 100 meters and go pretty much as fast as I can to get back on the flight plan. So go ahead and engage on route mode. This time I'm just going to put it on direct heading because we've already accomplished our mission. We don't need to stay directly on the flight path. As a matter of fact, we could just RTB, but I want to show you what happens when you get to the last waypoint, or at least the 6th waypoint. What happens when you're in route mode, because it can only do 6. So what's going to happen when it goes to the 7th? We'll find out here in a second. I'm not sure if I told you, on the PVI, you can hit this bottom right square, and instead of coordinates for the waypoint, it'll give you range, your current range, so 3.4 kilometers. And that also works when you're on the airfield button and the target button. Doesn't matter which mode you're in. Okay, so we're in direct heading mode, so we should go directly over number 6. Just zooming in on that. Watch us go right over it. Also, there should be an indicator light that comes on. Like when you're passing a waypoint, it usually says next waypoint. You know, that you're making a turn for the next waypoint.
223 just passed number 7. Nothing. No targets.
See, route end. So that's an indication that we're not going to be turning. We'll just be heading, 145 until we run out of gas. So what you can do at this point is, since we're done with the mission, kind of handy, is just come off the waypoint mode. We'll still maintain this heading even though the waypoint mode is off. When nothing's on here, it'll just maintain your current heading. So we will go to airfield 1, which is where we took off from. Again, range 45 miles. And here we go, making the turn. So that's it for mission number 7. A little bit of realism in terms of the 99% boredom, 1% sheer terror. And I will see you guys in the next mission.